This is Matt and Adam from Bares His Teeth, and you're listening to our chapter of As the Story Grows.
Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, I'm excited to finally share my chat with Adam Baker and Matt Hartman from Bares His Teeth. My absolute favorite conversations on this podcast are the ones where I feel like I'm chatting with lifelong friends, and that's what chatting with Matt and Adam felt like. There's a lot of fun conversation about growing up as fans of hardcore and the scene both guys came up through, as well as a quick look into both Matt and Adam's band history. Then we talk about how a Facebook group led to starting a band in the midst of a pandemic, the influences that inspired Bares His Teeth's sound, where the name came from, and their debut single, Hope Like an Ocean, which is available tomorrow, September 24th, as part of Friend Club Records on Second Thought compilation. You can pre-order that on Bandcamp digitally or on cassette, which is close to selling out, so snag a copy quickly. A link to pre-order is in the show notes. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's chat with Adam Baker and Matt Hartman.
I remember seeing Overcome at Cornerstone in 96. Oh, yeah. And that was right after they went into the Unbroken phase of things.
Oh, yeah.
They showed up in Levi's 501s, like pegged with like, I think they used like black, like motor oil.
Oh, yeah.
And we were all like, what is happening? And why aren't they wearing Jinkos with Adidas? This is not right.
I remember hearing stories of the Cali hardcore kids with like driving like cars from the 50s and doing all that. And I thought that was the craziest thing.
It was a crazy deal.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one of us got thin jeans after that. So
Dan from Zayo coming out with the overalls and the slick back with the Doc Martens. Like,
right.
Yes, the overalls.
It's creepers, man. Giant creepers.
Oh, yeah. Yep. It's great.
Well, thanks for having us on. This is fun.
Yeah. Oh, man, where to start? So much. Well, let's start with you, Adam. Where'd you grow up and what got you into music?
Oh, man. So I'm mostly from Ohio. We moved there in 1984 from South Africa, actually. And just grew up listening to a lot of 80s hair metal radio, which is good for everyone's soul, like lots of ballads. And I came across, I think it was Green Day's Dookie. I heard a song on the radio, and that was the very first like show that wasn't with my parents, like wasn't watching the Chieftains or something like that play. And I went and saw Dookie, and I had a friend invite me to go see Starflyer 59 and the Prayer Chain after that. And it was all over. I went from making like homemade MXPX shirts to meeting the guys in 6 Feet Deep. And hardcore kind of changed my life after that. So it's why I do what I do. It's shaped everything kind of about my understanding of community and how to connect with other people, advocacy, justice, the whole 9 yards. So
that's awesome. What about you, Matt?
Most of my music connection is just growing up listening to Christian music. So it's the traditional, like, grew up in the church kind of, listen to music your parents let you. And then I got into some cooler, like, Christian hip hop, bands like Deliverance and some of the early Christian metal. And then when I went to college, that's kind of when things changed. Tooth and Nail had just started putting out stuff in '94. So, got into MXPX. I actually saw Prayer Chain and 6 Feet Deep and a bunch of bands in Elgin, Illinois at Hardcore '94.
We were just talking about that. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so Adam and I probably were at the same shows.
Oh, it's a guarantee.
Because I lived in, I kind of lived all over. My dad was a minister, but so it's still Midwest, so Indiana, Michigan, and Illinois. So we probably did cross paths at some time.
Oh, it's almost a guarantee. I remember hearing about those Elgin, Illinois 6 Feet Deep shows. Like, they were legendary. Because I was a Cleveland hardcore kid.
Okay.
Just straight up we saw Zao like every other weekend.
Nice.
And it was all Splinter Shards era. So we just traveled around, and we were so frequent at those shows that they knew us as like, what was it? It was like the like Cleveland crew or something like that. Like, it's the only time in my life I've been in like a crew that isn't a tough guy crew.
Yeah. And I'd say it didn't really feel like a hardcore show when I saw them. Not because as later on, so Hardcore '94 was like 6 Feet Deep and then a bunch of like alternative, grungish, punkish bands, right?
I remember those shows. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So it wasn't your typical, a little while later, I saw Strong Arm in Wheaton, Illinois at True Tunes. And that was kind of my first like hardcore show. And that's, that was a very different scene, different kind of mosh pit. So yeah, it was a good time.
I almost saw Strong Arm in Cleveland, Matt, but it was with Strong Arm, and it was 6 Feet Deep, and it was Zao, and I think Disciple played that show. It was like the mother of all amazing shows that I should have been at.
Yeah.
But I was very interested in a girl at the time, and she bought me tickets to go see Sting, and that's what I went and saw instead.
Oh.
So I was the hardcore kid in hardcore gear at a Sting show, wishing I was at the Strong Arm. So there you go.
That's funny. I only got to see Strong Arm, their reunion. What was that, 2000, 2001?
Yeah.
Their reunion, which was awesome. What got you both into playing in bands?
Go for it, Matt.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So when I went to college, that was kind of the thing. Everyone had their guitars, and, I hung out with a kind of a crew that was music oriented. I went to a private Christian college, but we had this little club called the Christian Music Society, which is a kind of a funny name, but it was all about sharing cool Christian music. So that was like the tie with Tooth and Nail. So all my friends were kind of involved with promoting Tooth and Nail bands, trying to get people to listen to them. We were just all super excited about it. So we started some silly bands, just for fun with each other. We didn't really know how to play any of our instruments very well, but that kind of changed. Once I got into hardcore and got associated with some friends that knew how to play their instruments, I joined. I formed a small hardcore band, that Summation, out of Kankakee, Illinois. So, and then
the raging Kankakee scene.
Yeah. Actually, there was some history that I didn't know about.
Really, dude? That's amazing.
Yeah. So before I was even into hardcore, Chokehold played there, probably 94, 95. And I didn't even know about it because I didn't know what real hardcore music was. So yeah, I missed that. There's a band called Extinction, from that area. And so there's ties to, the Chicago hardcore scene, some crossover there too. So, but, once I was in Summation and started playing shows, and some of my other friends from college were in a band called Subsist. And they were just kind of getting started in the kind of the Christian hardcore scene. So once we found out they were losing a couple members, the drummer and I joined that band. So it was my friend Mike, who was in Summation. He joined Subsist.
Fire!
So that was a much bigger band for us. We actually had a tour band. We didn't really tour too much, just weekends, but that's kind of a big thing to go from playing your shows out of your car to like all getting in a van. So that was a step up.
Yeah. How did you guys get on the Radio Waves and Gibberish compilation?
That was, I don't have a good answer. Yeah, that was before me. So that was one of the very first things they did. And I'm assuming, I know that they were friends with the guys from Zao, and probably even like Matt Traxler or something. So yeah, that was a very early recording. But
that's the first place I ever heard Subsist. I told Matt about this, but I bought that from Traxler whenever it got first released. I think I might have bought it through his old Steadfast zine that he used to do.
Nice.
Yeah, that dude introduced me to so much good music back in the day. But yeah, that Radio Waves, Subsist, and Fessy Del Signor, all sorts of other like crazy bands. Good stuff.
Yeah. So that people definitely they'll remember Subsist from that if they were kind of in that scene, which is cool. We would have guys from Disciple come up and be like, hum a few bars of that song Restraint, or so that was pretty cool. That was a cool feeling. Then from then I went on to joining a band called Dead to Fall, which is kind of a at the gates moshcore band. And we were just a local Chicago band, and we became friends with the people that worked at Victory Records. So we recorded our demo in Detroit, drove all the way to Detroit, slept on the studio floor, recorded that with Mike Hasty from Walls of Jericho and Earth Mover. And then kind of wouldn't say our whole plan was to always go after Victory Records, but we were pretty good friends with the people that worked there. So we got that demo to them as quick as we could. And that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. But you left the band like shortly after signing to Victory, right?
I did.
Yeah. What led to that?
Yeah. So, I was a good bit older. I mean, relatively. Now it doesn't seem that much older, but, I had been out of college for a couple of years. And really, it was kind of the time in my life where I had to make a choice. Do I want to do this tour in a band that doesn't really make a lot of money? I mean, Victory Records was an achievement, and I felt really good about that, and I liked the label. But really, it was a choice for me. Just kind of, do I want to focus on a career, focus on a relationship? I was dating my now wife. So really, it was a big choice. I really haven't done any music since then. And that's been about 2002. So that's part of why I'm so excited to make all these connections again. To start making music with Adam and all my friends online. And I've been like reaching out to people that I used to know, that were in the scene or worked at Victory. So it's really amazing that, you could do something 20 years ago and then just be like, hey, and you can just pick up like you never stopped.
Yeah. It's awesome. Adam, what about you? What's your band history look like?
My band history is not as illustrious as Mr. Hartman's. I've been in 2 bands in my entire life, and both of them were just with buddies. Like the second one I played some shows around Canton, Ohio with. But the first one was in Northwest Ohio in the summer of 98 and 1999. We were called Mid-Autumn, and which of course is a good emo-y hardcore band name if there ever was one. You could tell exactly what kind of music we played. Or as the Branson guys fondly referred to it, Mid-Atom, when we played with them. And it was just some buddies and I. They basically gave me a guitar and taught me how to palm mute so I could be part of the rhythm section. And I danced around and screamed and yelled things. And that was it. But the only other band I've ever really been in was a band called Toledo Knives. And you can actually find our stuff on Bandcamp. It's a pretty terrible recording. So, judge not too terribly.
I still remember the times when I worried what you thought or how you feel. If I stepped outside these walls that became real, just like tonight. Yeah, real, just like tonight.
That was just a lot of fun. It was great to play a bunch of shows, write some music with friends, and I haven't been so much in bands as I've helped bands. Like I am a graphic designer and an illustrator. So I've done, I co-owned a creative company called Three Bears Design for about 8 or 9 years. And we did a ton of work, kind of made a dream list when we started of bands we'd love to work with. And by the end of our time together, we had done all of those and more without advertising. So everybody from Me Without You to Cloud Kicker to, we did La Dispute. I did a bunch of different T-shirts for a bunch of different bands and merch and things like that. But yeah, that's something I still do, and I have a lot of fun doing. Did the illustrations for Narcissus for their Becoming Leviathan record, which is something that people seem to know and care about. So it's still fun to do that. But this was just a bunch of friends online who used to play in bands who are now like married and or dads with full-time jobs saying, we're all quarantined, man. Do you want to play some music? And it's turned into something. So,
Yeah, people have released music during COVID.
Yeah.
The releasing of music is still happening. But you guys decided to start a band during quarantine. And you kind of talked about that conversation. How'd that look? How'd you guys all get connected to form this band?
Yeah, Adam, you can probably give the history of so there's this kind of a chat group that we're all in, and I'm kind of a newcomer to it. So Adam probably has a better history of how that started.
Well, we have a common friend who actually plays bass for us. His name's Daniel Johnson, and he started this online Facebook group, which has swelled in ranks to like 10 or 12,000 people. And it's called Midwest Emo Posting. So you know exactly what that's about. And sure enough, we spend a lot of time talking about and sharing the music that we've loved from emo bands from the 90s and 2000s. And kind of a subgroup kind of kicked off where there were just some of us chatting who kind of realized that we have common faith backgrounds or just enjoy one another. And we've been friends who've chatted back and forth. And I think when quarantine kind of started, just sort of laughingly, there were a bunch of us, we kind of tossed out into the ether and said, hey, would anybody be interested in making some music? Ha. And 4 of us responded yes. And we just started throwing some ideas back and forth. And we looked for a drummer. I had suggested a couple friends of mine. One was Mark Nix from Cool Hand Luke. And he was interested, but he's also a dad, so he is very busy and was not able to take part. But my friend Matt Putnam from
A Million Bands.
Million Bands, yeah.
I
met Matt like back in the Esocharis days, back in '96, when their website was still on Angel Fire, and I ordered 2 shirts from them through the mail, and I remember getting a phone call from that dude because they sent me the wrong one or ran out or something. He was super apologetic, and I was trying to play it cool, like I wasn't freaking out that Esocharis guy was calling me. But yeah, we've been friends since then, and have just stayed in touch. And when I asked him, he said sure, and we've just started hammering away, man. And it's been super encouraging. Super encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's been the strangest thing. Just the way to make music this way is so different than, if I would have told myself 20 years ago that you could do all this, from your basement, in different places, right? It's crazy how we can record parts, send them to each other, get them back. And the songs that we're writing I think they're really different than they would have been if we were all sitting in a room playing together.
I agree. I think we spend more time with the parts that we send one another. Like we kind of give ourselves space that we wouldn't necessarily have in a live practice space. And realistically, what's interesting is that like this is the second time I've ever video chatted with Matt. Like right now. Like I
That's
just
hilarious.
found out what his voice sounded like the other day.
Right.
And I think 4/5 of us have never met one another in person.
I'll say, and the first time I've heard Adam's voice is when he recorded a spoken word part on one of our songs.
That's right. I forgot
Because I only had ever heard him sing until then. So
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Was there a conversation about music style and direction you wanted to go and sound you were hoping to
yes.
go in that direction towards?
Yeah, so I think I actually posted the first message and said, "Hey, who wants to start a band that sounds like Fiddlehead?" Right. So that was kind of my first attempt, and then it got kind of like, well, what about Jawbox? What about all these kind of angular bands? And I think Interpol got thrown in there, and it was a really kind of a big swirl of band suggestions.
We did start off trying to sound like Fiddlehead because we all really liked that Fiddlehead full length and their EP. And just what it comes down to is I can't sing like that. And I am a terrible screamer. Like we'd get a song if I was screaming and I'd never be able to do anything ever again. So yeah, we just I think it honestly came a lot from listening to the new Quicksand, which is this just powerful record.
It's so good.
It's so good,
So
man.
good.
But the thing I think we all love about that is that there's such inventiveness in regard to the music, but it's freaking heavy. And the dude has a great voice that he uses. Like it's much more melodic than like Slip or like those early records. Yeah, I think that record really kind of freed us up to say like, we could just do whatever the crap we want to do.
That's cool. And who's taking the lead on like writing, if anybody? I mean, you're kind of all doing it at home, sending parts around.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it varies. Sometimes our one guitarist, Nat Danger, as we so lovingly call him, Nathaniel Fitzgerald, who's in another band called Spaceships that everybody should check out. They just released a new record, and it's beautiful
it's
and amazing.
very good. Yeah.
He will sometimes write parts and bring it to the table. But Matt also writes a lot of parts as well. Just kind of riffs, kind of bringing things in. What do you think about this? Here's some robo drums. This could possibly give us an idea. And we just kind of built things slowly that way.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is I just turn on the robo drums and start playing. And I'll get something that sounds cool. And if someone doesn't write back, like, because we have a Slack group that we talk in, and I'll post it, and if I don't hear back in 15 minutes or so, I'll just keep adding to it until someone writes me back. So sometimes I'll just send over a small riff. Sometimes it's a pretty layered, with a couple riffs, but it's a lot of back and forth. Which it's a very, like I said, it's a very different way of writing music than I'm used to. So I think the sound comes off that way. When you'll hear our stuff, there's just a ton of depth and layers to it, and I think it's because of how we're writing it.
I think the layers is key because, Matt, you'll start with guitar parts, and Nat will add guitar parts on top of that. Daniel will come in with his bass, which just like transforms the world, and then I'll probably bring vocals in, which alters the whole mood of things. And we might fiddle around some more before sending it off for live drums, and then we tweak it from there and make additions as we go. So there are so many layers to what we're making, which is just a blast.
That's awesome. I assume it's through Spaceships. That's how you guys got connected with Friend Club Records.
Well, actually, Daniel co-owns Friend Club. He helps run that. So, and our friend Rob, who's also in our little chat group, is the other guy who runs Friend Club Records. So they very generously and pretty naturally said, since they're putting out everybody else who we're all friends with, they said, hey, do you want to do something with us? And we're really excited about releasing whatever we put out with them.
That's awesome. The first single you're unleashing is Hope Like the Ocean.
We could be moving mountains, a small seed in our minds. Though we see nothing, fire can burn so bright in the sun. My hope like the ocean.
What's the theme of that song?
So I think like there's no kind of mistake that we are making the music that we're making in the midst of global pandemic, in the midst of just profound social unrest, where I kind of feel like a lot of stuff that we could kind of pass over or deny, like the whole claim that racism doesn't exist because we passed the Civil Rights Voting Act and all that stuff back in the 60s. Like all of that has been, it's like a Band-Aid's been left in place for 3 decades and it's finally been ripped off. And what people pretended were healed wounds have just been shown to be as nasty as they've always been, if not worse. And so, I think that all of our songs kind of have, at least lyrically, kind of a lot of basis in current events, trying to find hope in the midst of all of this. Because it feels at many times like we're in the freaking upside down. It's like I've stepped through, like, I'm serious. This looks like the world that I knew, and yet it is entirely different. And it's what's weird is that so many of the people and persons that we've known or the institutions that we kind of thought we understood have been unveiled as something other than what they've always been, or at least what we thought they've always been. And so Hope Like the Ocean is just kind of in the midst of that, in the midst of uncertainty, really trying to come to grips with just scrabbling at faith, scrabbling at the hope that there is something better, something beautiful. And really, like, I just cling to the fact that even a small seed of hope is enough to transform the world, especially when it's shared among people. And that's really what that song is about. It's really saying, like, we need to cling to the hope, even a small hope, that things can be better and different.
That's awesome. So that single will release September 24th as part of a Friends Club compilation. Is that right?
Yeah. It'll be premiered on the 22nd.
Okay.
On Scene Point Blank, I believe. So
awesome. What's the future look like? Is there a full length or an EP that you guys are working towards?
We've got some pretty good momentum. I think Matt would agree with me. Like right now, we are working to tweak and finish at least 2 other songs, and I'd say 3 or 4 are in the pike, and in the pipe or whatever. I just don't use adages well. They're being worked on. That's what I'm saying. And I mean, I think that we're well on our way to the possibility of a full length record, or at least a long EP. And I think we're all just stoked to make music that we love and share it with people. And the fact that people are actually pretty excited about it is humbling. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we just kind of had the same discussion today. We talk as a band on Facebook and our little group a lot, and it's like, I think we have an LP in us, and we're like, oh, let's one song at a time. So I think we're super excited, and we would love to put out an LP, or like Adam said, a long EP. And I think we'll have the material. But we're also kind of taking one song at a time, and And that's, I mean, it's different. We're recording it, as we go. It's different than even just going to a studio and having to lay down an album. So we're just kind of seeing how it evolves.
And there's a lot of freedom in that too. Like, this isn't our bread and butter. We're all working other jobs, but it is a source of like joy and creativity for us. And I think the kind of phrase that we've been using is we might as well pull out all the stops. We might as well just kind of call in any favors we've ever had. We might as well just make any connections that, like Matt's talking about, talking with people he's known for years, and the same with me, and just slowly working to make songs that we are just crazy proud of. And that's really what's happening, like in a way that just continues to blow my mind.
That's cool. Yeah, Matt, is it like going from being in a touring hardcore band, signing to Victory, the demoing, to just me and my friends that we met on the internet making an album in our basements? Like, what's that like to take a 20-year break and then come back and make music in your basement? And I guess have people be just as excited as Dead to Fall in those early days, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a trip. It's kind of like my musical career. I just freeze dried it. Put in cryo sleep for 20 years, and and I didn't know, I hadn't played guitar seriously since then. So I had self-doubts about that, but it's just super encouraging to write a riff and then send it to your friends, and they say how awesome or they love it, and that kind of that part in me that made music, that was a huge part. I did that until I was probably 24, 25 years old, when I left Dead to Fall. So really, that being dormant for 20 years, I'm just super excited to do this again. And even if it's, we have no ambitions of touring and, any of that. But just with the technology and then the stuff we can use to share our music and get it out there, it's crazy. And it's just crazy that these connections are almost instant again. The people that I haven't reached out to in forever, they're happy to hear from me. It's always been a crazy scene, the hardcore scene. And it's been hard to explain to people that weren't part of it. Right. Mm-hmm. But just the connections that I made, there was a guy on Adam's page that was he heard about our band and was like, "Hey, Matt Hartman from Exclamation X," which is that small little band that I was in.
First one, yeah.
And he's like, I'm so glad he's doing new stuff. I'm like, how does this guy even know about that band? And so I talked to him, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I saw you guys when you played with Subsist and Zayo, and we talked and hung out, and he's like, I just really, was into what you were doing. And it just blew me away that, that someone even remembered that about that band. But that's the connections that were made back then. It's crazy.
And that's a guy who I'm friends with because his band played with my first band a few times in Northwest Ohio. And so realistically, the scene all around the country is not that big. We're probably talking about I don't know, at any point in the 90s, probably 600 to 800 people who are kind of fundamentally moving around or making music or stuff like that. And it's just crazy to kind of think those connections are easily revivable. And that, all of us are I'm 42, and it's just such a blast to be able to kind of be hey, do you want to be a part of this? We still listen to this music, every single one of us. We may look professional during the day, but I'm throwing down in a pit in my heart anytime I'm driving to work or anything like that, shouting along. So it's a lot of fun.
Right. That underground hardcore punk indie scene is so small. And then when you boil it down to the Christian subset, it's even smaller. And it's
so small.
Between festivals and bands, people randomly know each other. And it's those connections. It's you didn't know each other, but you were both there, and that connection lives on. And yeah, it binds us all. Where'd that name come from?
Well, there is a phrase in the Chronicles of Narnia where they're talking about Aslan. When he bares his teeth, winter meets its death, and when he shakes his mane, spring will come again. And given current realities, I was like, I think we could use some teeth baring, some mane shaking. Let's make that happen. So that was suggested, and everybody liked it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I saw on your Facebook page, you have the Dave Quiggle Narnia painting.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. That's cool. Anything else? Do you want to share, guys?
Oh, Adam, we didn't mention Dan's band.
Yes. Do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah. Dan from he plays bass. He has a band with his wife called The Bell and the Hammer. How would you describe their music, Adam?
It's kind of like an indie folk duo. Lots of great harmonies. I think that's one of the things that I love so much about this band is the people who play in it either make completely different music or listen to a lot of very varied music. Like we're definitely not a bunch of like grumpy old men who just listen to metal. Like,
Right.
We come from a lot of really different backgrounds. And so, yeah, I think that, we just want to kind of take the opportunity to say, listen to The Bell and the Hammer, which are on Frank Club's record. Listen to Spaceships, which is also releasing stuff on Frank Club. And there's just a lot of really good music out there, and we're excited to support it and take part in it.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our theme song was written and composed by the legendary Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe on iTunes and give the show a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, click on the Patreon link at asthestorygrows.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, more I wanna know, more I wanna show you. As the story grows, as the story grows. You can create something lasting and great, something passionate and real. And I'll bring in my own good feelings, I'll sing it with meaning. Let's just attack it and never look back. It's wild and fantastic. All together at full power, we're so much better.